Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we've taken the trip internationally once more to our old proving grounds for the BIKC over at Teamsport Cardiff. And in this video we are taking part in a elite GP1 event. Now, I haven't got footage from the qualifying, apparently that's appeared to not film, so instead we're jumping in to the first heat. So the way this format was set out is there was two 15-minute heats, and you started in the same position for both heats, much like in the regional finals at BIKC, and then these points were then tallied up, and this was then given your position for the grand final. So we're starting in 9th place here behind Joe Peters. And before we get underway, if you do enjoy the video, could you please hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new, or if you haven't already, as it really does help me out and I appreciate it a lot. But jumping straight into the footage, you can see we're going for a rolling start here, and we're tucked in 9th position, as I said, behind Joe Peters. So we had a decent qualifying, but it wasn't quite good enough. We did have about a 20-minute wait before the first heat due to the timings messing up a little bit. It did actually say I was in 4th position after 5 laps, because only the first 5 laps actually registered. So I thought I was going to start a little bit higher up, but I was still happy with my performance nonetheless. I was just above halfway. There was about 16 of us on the night, so I just wanted to really try and get my head down and try and finish in the top half of the field if I can. So you can see already we're losing a little bit of time to the drivers up ahead, making a few mistakes, having to go a little bit defensively to James, who was behind me. Obviously James is the driver who I raced here in the BIKC Local Final, and he actually managed to win the regional final and get away into the national final of the BIKC. So I really wanted to come back here, really prove myself and try and show him once again, see if I could put a good performance out. So we come across the line on our first lap at 36.182, a not very good lap. You can see the gaps really opened up already to the drivers ahead. So I realised I was lacking a little bit of pace, and Joe here goes down the inside of one of the other drivers. I looked to go and follow him round, but unfortunately I did actually leak a position to James there, so that pushed me back down into 10th position. I was a bit annoyed at that, but I was just willing to put my head down and try and catch up with some of the others. Now, I did notice the kart didn't quite feel perfect, much like usually the karts feel quite smooth, quite natural around Cardiff. Instead, I don't know if it's the tyre pressures or if it was just the way it was run on the night, but going through the bottom section, it felt that the bottom of the kart was actually grinding on the floor through some of the corners, and this meant there was a lot of understeer, and I couldn't quite get the rotation in the kart that I really wanted to. So this was meaning that I lost quite a bit of time. You can see already losing a bit of time to James and some of the other drivers up ahead. So down in 10th position at this point, I really wanted to try and get my head down, try and make the position back, and maybe make a few more positions if I could. I didn't really want to lose positions in a heat race. Obviously, you only really want to go forward. You can see there, look how much I'm turning the wheel to the left, and the kart was just still going in a straight line. But no matter from that, we still come across the line at 35.338 second lap, which isn't a reasonable lap for the first few laps. I was quite happy with that. I felt that my pace was quite strong. Obviously my fastest lap at Cardiff in the Biz Karts was a 45.5 second lap. I looked for the inside there on James, but unfortunately I decided to back out, and as I mentioned, I did actually manage to get a 45.5 second lap, and this was when I was still in the heavyweight category. So I was really looking forward to coming back and seeing how the change in weight, which I've really been pushing towards for the start of this next coming up season, really affected how I performed on track. I felt that up the ramp I really had a lot more pace compared to what I used to. I wasn't really bogging down as much, I wasn't losing as much time as some of the other drivers ahead. You can see they're having a little bit of a squabble here, and it's a bit of a 4-man battle at this point. So a little bit of bumping, a little bit of train going on, and we're just really willing to tuck up behind the back of James and try and follow him through if he tries to make any overtakes on the other drivers ahead. You can see getting bumped in mid-corner as well, so I knew that there was some of the other drivers behind me. I think it was Kai who was behind me, and he was looking to try and get an overtake on me as well. So I was trying to sort of preserve my position as well as going for an attacking position. And here you can see James leaves the door open a little bit, and I lunged down the inside and managed to make the move stick quite nicely, so I'm able to actually regain the position that I'd lost earlier in the race. So I'm back up into 9th position, and I was looking at this point to really try and catch up to the other drivers that were almost racing away. So I was just trying to hope that they were battling with each other, and I keep seeing me look over my shoulder. I didn't want James to lunge back down the inside much like he did earlier in the session, so I wanted the two drivers up ahead to have a little bit of a squabble and sort of allow me to catch up and see through the bottom section here. I'm actually gaining a little bit of time here through taking some different lines compared to some of the other drivers. We come across the line now on that lap at 35.405 second lap, so still not our fastest lap of the race so far, but that is due to us having a few squabbles. They're driving a little bit more defensively. You can see me driving more to the middle of the track now, or more to the inside, rather than taking a big sweeping line. You can see there a lunge down the inside that pushes me offline, but luckily for me I was able to gain the position and not lose it to the driver behind. Obviously I felt that probably would have been a bit of a disrespectful move if they pushed past me there, but I was able to just maintain the position in 9th place, and unfortunately I did lose a little bit of time, and this caused me to lose a bit of space. And obviously my lap time there 36.234, so not our quickest lap going forward, but here we switch forward a little bit because it was just a little bit of train driving. You can see I've lost a little bit of time to the drivers ahead, so our fastest lap so far is a 34.754 at this point, and we come across the line that lap at 34.677, so only 1/10 off my actual best in the biz car. Still driving a little bit defensively as I felt that I was holding up some of the other drivers behind, so here I was just trying to maintain a decent racing line and just try and put down as many laps as I possibly could, as many quick laps as I possibly could, to try and ensure that I came across the line in a decent state. And I believe that this was actually in fact the last lap of the first heat, so we jumped forward quite a bit there and we come up to the back of one of the back markers here. You see as we're going all over the place, we come across the line now on this lap with a 34.820 second lap, so our fastest lap in the first heat was a 34.677, which I was very happy with. We come up here and have a little fist bump with James. Good racing. So we're going to jump straight into the second heat, obviously starting in 9th position again. As I mentioned, all drivers are reset to the place where they started in the first heat, and here I was just willing to try and stay in the train, but unfortunately there was just a lot of slow drives here. I get bumped down the inside, get taken from the outside, and this leads to me going all over the place, looking a position to James, who's managed to sneak down the inside and get away. I tried to drive quite defensive there, but you can see immediately the amount of ruckus that was going on in the first lap there, and I've actually lost about 5,000 kart lengths to the driver ahead, so I was just really trying to sort of put the pace down and try and catch up to the others that had sort of gained the gap. You can see straight away we come across the line to start the race officially, and we're down in 10th position. So much like the first heat, we actually lost a position quite early on, and we were looking to try and gain it back as quickly as we possibly could. I didn't want to sit down in 10th position too long. I didn't want to lose a position because I just felt in myself that it wasn't really justified on the day. I thought I had a bit more pace than was being shown, so here I was just really trying to get as quick laps out of the car as I possibly could. I felt the car was a little bit down on power, but it was definitely enough to work with, and here you can see once again just trying to take a really tight line through the bottom section. You can see we're gaining a little bit of time on the drivers ahead. We come across the line 35.364 second lap, so already a pretty decent lap to start off with, and obviously this is due to the track being a little bit warmer and the cart's being a bit warmer after it's just been used in the first heat. So here going nice and wide, trying to regulate the throttle and the brake as much as I possibly can to try and get as good exits as I can down to the bottom ramp here, just trying to tuck in as much as I can, again sweeping to the left here to then keep the power down all the way through the right hand sweeping corner here, and really taking a different line to everyone else through the sort of complex section here. And you can see how much time it's actually allowed me to gain up to a 35.163 second lap, so some pretty decent laps. I gave James a little wave there because I just wanted to say to him, you haven't quite left me for dead just yet, so I was just really willing to try and close up to him as much as I possibly could, hoping that the drivers ahead sort of get into a little bit of a battle much like earlier in the first session, and it allows me to gain as much time as I possibly can. Really going against the grain here. It felt a little bit slippier compared to how it did the last time I was here. Obviously the last time I was in Cardiff was around 4.5 months ago, so it felt a little bit different, but I was really just trying to get my head down and try and catch up some of the other drivers. Come across the line there, a little bit of a slower lap there, 35.345, but still a decent enough lap to sort of catch up with some of the other drivers that were running around ahead of us. So again, I was really struggling on this corner. I wasn't quite taking enough speed for it or taking the right line, and I think I was trying to take a bit of an early apex, and this meant that the back end of the kart was sort of sliding around a little bit as I put the throttle down a bit too early, and this then led to me losing a bit of time through that corner. But I was really gaining it back through the bottom section, staying as flat out as I possibly can and really tucking in tight through the complex section just to try and minimise the track length as much as I can. We come across the line on this lap into the 34 second lap, so 34.969 second lap, which obviously is going to come down more and more as the session progresses. So here we're sort of maintaining that gap to James, again getting that corner a little bit wrong and losing a little bit of time. You can see the drivers are starting to bunch up ahead of us, and this is just only allowing me to gain time on them. Obviously Joe and James sort of fighting with the driver ahead of them, and they're all bunching together. So here Joe goes for a little move down the inside, sort of compromise himself. James looks for a little move, and this allows me to really close up a lot here. You can see almost a touching distance away now, but unfortunately I did have a little bit of contact with the wall there on the exit of the complex section. That causes me to lose a bit of my momentum coming up the ramp as well, just losing a bit of time to James up ahead of me. So again, just really trying to focus, trying to get my lines right, just trying to do as best a job as I possibly can, just to ensure that I can get some really good times nailed down and just try and get some good track times. So again, you can see a lot of carnage going on up ahead, and I really wanted to get involved. See James looking for the outside line on one of the other drivers, but he thinks better of it there, just to try and tuck in behind, just so he doesn't lose time to me. I go on a little bit hot there, and instead of gaining time I actually lost a little bit there, but we really are closing up quite a lot. You can see a bit of a slower lap once again. I think that's our slowest lap of the session, a 35.481. So instead of gaining time on the drivers ahead, we've actually managed to slow down, unfortunately not gain as much as we possibly could have with the mistakes that they were making or the battling they were doing. So again, just taking a nice wide line into some of these corners just to ensure that I can really close up as much as I possibly can. Again, just looking over my shoulder just to ensure that I didn't get attacked or sort of have a little bit of a send done on me from behind. So again, really closing up through the bottom section, my favourite corner on the track by far, really able to swing the car in and really keep the momentum flowing with the throttle, getting into all sorts of mess coming into the hairpin before the up ramp, really having to do a little bit of oversteer to counteract the slide that I sort of put myself in. But we've really closed up now behind the back of the train, so we managed to tag along behind. I was really looking at this point to try and look for a move where I can really bide my time. I didn't want to rush into a move and compromise us both, so I was looking to try and get a clean overtake if I can, because he was able to gap me down the back straight there quite a lot and really throwing the car in again into the complex section. But unfortunately just clipping the walls again is making me lose the momentum that I was actually able to gain. So instead I've managed to drag myself back a couple of kart lengths here and losing a bit of time up the ramp with the line that I was taking going into that hairpin. So instead, again, just really trying to focus on catching up with the guys ahead. But unfortunately the driver behind me there, Kai, goes for a move down the inside on the hairpin, and it does compromise me a bit. We had a little bit of contact, and that led to me losing even more time to the drivers ahead. So unfortunately I was actually stuck in 10th position for now. I was unable to actually make any progress due to the fact that I was just taken back a little bit. I had to drive a little bit more defensively just to ensure that I wasn't actually getting overtaken. And as we come up the ramp here, we do jump ahead to later in the session. We can see that we were sort of maintaining the same sort of spot, but you can see in the top left our fastest lap of the race so far has been a 34.408, which is already a tenth faster than my fastest lap in the BIKC karts at Cardiff. So I felt I had really good pace on this evening. Bear in mind this was only the second session, I knew that there was still another one to come, so I was really looking forward to putting my best lap time in that I could possibly do in the BIKC karts. I was really looking forward to trying to get to 33 second laps if I possibly could. Obviously, having not been here for a couple of months, I was a little bit out of shape in terms of knowing the track layout and knowing where the grip was, so I didn't think I was going to smash into the 33s, but the closer I could get to it, the better it was going to be for me. And we come across the start finish straight on this lap with a 34.377, which was in fact my fastest lap of this session, and once again my fastest lap so far in the BIKC kart. So I was really in a good pace here, but unfortunately I was just a bit too far behind, as this was the latter stages of the second heats, to make any sort of progress back up into 9th place. So here I stayed in 10th position for the rest of this heat, and we come around the last few corners here really just trying to chuck the car in, getting a little bit too narrow into that corner, not quite drifting as far to the left as I probably should have, and this meant that I sort of hit the barrier, and we come across the line on this lap with a 34.436, which is still a decent lap. Let's see how we do in the final. So here we have it then, into the grand final in 10th position, due to James having a faster lap than me, even though we were on equal points. So I was really looking to try and beat him if I could. He was the man that I wanted to try and get ahead. You can see here he goes for a move to the outside, much like he did in the second heat, and he goes right down the inside of one of the other drivers, and I decided to follow him through here, going a little bit aggressive into the bottom hairpin, but making the move stick, lifting myself up and out of the kart just to try and get the weight off the back wheel so I try and get a better exit, and in fact it did work, so we were up into 9th place once again. But as I mentioned, I did want to try and beat James on track, as he really was the person that I've been battling for the whole night, and I really wanted to try and get ahead of him if I possibly could. So you can see here he has managed to gain a little bit of a gap, obviously due to trying to force that overtake on the driver behind me, but I felt on this session that I did actually have a little bit more pace left in me compared to what I used in the first 2 sessions, so I was really just trying to use him as a reference just to try and knuckle down and catch up as much as I possibly could. So here you can see going flat out through all of the bottom section here, I'm really tucking in nice and close. You can see how much the track is actually gripped up. I'm not using as much of left and right angle on the steering wheel to try and counteract what I'm doing, but you can see there driver behind me going a little bit aggressive into the bottom hairpin there, and that caused me to lose the back end a little bit, but luckily we were not able to lose a lot of time to James up ahead, going a little bit defensive as well, so compromising myself a little bit to his times up ahead. But really you can see already that I am actually gaining time on him somehow, so unfortunately I think he was having a little bit of a tough session here compared to how he was in the first 2 sessions. You can see the back end of the kart's going a little bit all over the place, and this is allowing me to really close up behind him, especially through the complex section at the bottom. We come across the line there 35.071, and really once again getting a good run up onto the hairpin, and you can see he's a little bit distraught with that because he knows what's about to happen. You can see here goes in a little bit wide, a little bit upset with himself. I decided to take a little bit of a wider line here while he goes defensive, just to try and squeeze him as much as I can to the apex, and this led to me allowing myself to have a nice little switch back there. I parked the car on the apex, and this allowed me just to squeeze past him as much as I possibly could and sort of try and make entrees into the other drivers that were on the track and come across the line there at 35.292. Now we are going to skip ahead a little bit of footage here just because we were going round in 8th place. I was able to gain a gap on James behind me, so here you can see we are going round now in 8th position, and unfortunately the drivers ahead of me were able to just pull away, and the drivers behind I was able to pull away from, so I was in a little bit of no man's land there. You can see me looking over my shoulder being a bit confused just because I wasn't quite quick enough to catch up with the guys ahead, but I was a bit quicker than the guys behind. So there was about 3 groups, and one of the groups consisted of myself. So you can see in the top left, however, our fastest lap so far in this session is a 34.285, which, as I said, is about 2 and a bit tenths quicker than my fastest lap ever at Cardiff in the biz part. So I was really happy with my pace. I was really sort of getting myself in the zone here. We come across the line on this lap with a 34.271. Now unfortunately, as we come up the ramp here, my GoPro did actually die, so I am going to have to just give you an image from BIKC that was taken from me. But what I would like to say is that by the end of the session I did manage to get my lap time down to a 34.117 second lap, which I was really happy with. I didn't expect it, and it was a lot better than I thought I was going to do going into it. So it does prove that by losing the amount of weight I have done, I have actually managed to gain a lot of time, and obviously this was in a bit more difficult conditions. It's colder, it's a little bit slippier, and obviously I wasn't used to the track. I haven't been in about 4 months, so I was really happy with my time. I was really happy to finish in 8th place. I was actually the 2nd middleweight on track, which I was really happy with, and I just hope I can carry this into the rest of the season. So as always, this does bring us to the end of the video, so I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and if you have, I really would appreciate it if you hit the like button down below, and if you are new here, could you subscribe to the channel, or if you haven't already, subscribe as well, as it really does mean a lot to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.